All right, good day and welcome to another episode of RoadFS Detail Memoirs. It is the Business 101 series with Prentice St. Clair. My name's Jody.
I'm Rod Puzey, and the three of us are going to explore a plethora of business topics. If you haven't seen the beginning of this or the first recording, we go over the overview, and we are starting at the top, working to the bottom.
And it's we're going to try to make this not overwhelming or boring or just because I think a lot of times, especially when you get into today's topic of compliance, licensing, and insurance, most people's eyes roll back in their head and go, why do I need that? I can just go to work.
Yeah, exactly. No, it won't be overwhelming. It'll just be whelming.
Whelming. I love that. So before we jump into that, I need to give Prentice a shout out because he is the owner operator of Detail in Progress. He also runs the Detailing Academy. He's also the director of training for P&S Detailing School.
He's an IDA founding member. He sits on the board of directors. I mean,
IDA recognized trainer, blah, 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 blah. Can you just see the stack of experience and expertise this guy's bringing to the conversation today?
Hall of Fame.
Oh, yes.
Hall of Fame. All right. So,
oh, my gosh.
All right. So...
Wow, that's a lot.
Well,
that means the expectations are really high. That's the only problem with all that.
Well,
anyway, no, I got to tell my plethora joke though, because you used the word plethora. So, guys, sitting next to the recently widowed woman, good friend, and it's during the open mic time where you can come up and say a few words about the deceased, and he leans over to her and he says, "Do you mind if I say a word?" And she leans back, "Oh, that would be wonderful." Plethora. And she leans back, "Thanks, that means a lot." Sorry.
Very nice.
I gotta share that with my son, saying he is like the king of dad jokes and he's not even a dad yet.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and all good jokes are stolen, so I got that from somewhere for sure. So I guess I'll jump right in. Today's topic, the last podcast, we went over sort of an overview of all the stuff we're going to try to cover in this series, Business 101. And so I'm looking at my outline, and the first one we're going to jump into a little bit deeper than we did in the overview is this whole idea of compliance. And that's not doing what you're told. We're all adults now. We don't need to be told. We don't need to do what we're told. It's about operating your business in a legitimate fashion and being legal and taking care of all the legal hoops. And I believe that businesses that take the time to do this tend to be more profitable because they understand the concepts of doing things right and paying all those expenses and then charging correctly to make sure those are all covered. And I think it also works well with your marketing because all of your compliance efforts should be part of your marketing effort, because we know that there's a lot of detailers out there doing things the wrong way. I mean, recently we had that whole thing in Central California where the detailers were trying to push back on an ordinance that was basically just putting into place a law that's been around for 40, 50 years. And we saw pictures of people using foam cannons in the street and all that stuff just going down on the street. And it's like, no, you can't do it that way. It looks terrible, and I don't care if your customers like it. You got the wrong customers because they don't care either. So anyway, I'm diving into going down a wormhole there. But anyway, so the first thing with compliance is going to be most municipalities require a business to have a license or a permit of some sort. And let's face it, it's really a business tax. They're just trying to collect money to give you permission to operate in the city or the county or whatever the district is that you're in. But legitimate businesses will have business licenses. And I got to tell you, here in San Diego, it's $45 a year. It's almost nothing. And then I get that piece of paper that says I'm a licensed business in the city of San Diego. So that's something that I use in my marketing is I will say to customers who are questioning my prices or why should I go with you? Well, because I'm licensed, I'm insured, and I'm certified. Okay. So all three of those things are part of that. So, as far as business license, it's really easy to look that up online. You just put in whatever your city is and say, City of San Diego business license, and it'll probably pop up. And you might even be able to fill it out online. Some of those require that if you have a fictitious business name, it's not Prentice's Detailing, it's actually Detail in Progress. So Detail in Progress is a fictitious business name. It doesn't include my own name, so it's separate. So I actually had to go down and file that at the county and get a fictitious business name, and then take that to the licensing agency or the business tax agency in San Diego and show them that. And get it published too. You have to get it published in a local newspaper. And you'll notice that if you ever look in a newspaper, there's this whole section, like 4, 5, 6 pages of just all this legal stuff, because they have to publish it somewhere. So the newspaper does that service and they make money off of it. So then you do that, you get your business license. And then there might be some other permits that your particular municipality or even state requires.
Might be around your vehicles. If you're mobile, your vehicle might have to have it might have to be a I can't remember the name of it, but they'll have a number they put right on your vehicle. It's a registered vehicle that is operated as a business. And depending on what it is you're hauling, they have to have that right on the side of the vehicle, commercial ID or something like that. And there can be tax benefits to that. So you have to check your local municipality, like Prentice was saying, and see what are the rules around having this type of business in that city, county, state. Right.
So, for example, in the state of California, there's business licenses for CPAs, for dog groomers, for family therapists, for a whole list of things. Fortunately, there doesn't happen to be one for detailing per se, but you need to check that as well. And it's probably not going to be that big of a deal. You just got to look into it and figure it out. The worst thing that can happen is a city employee is going to show up and say, "Hey, where's your business license?" And if you don't have it, hopefully they'll just give you a fix-it ticket. But why not just have it anyway and then put it on your business cards, fully licensed, insured, and certified. Okay. Right. The insured part we're going to talk about in a little bit, and certified, of course, is getting your ID. It's hard to look at that in video. Getting your IDA certification, so that you can say, I am an independently certified automotive detailer by an international organization. Huge. Yep. Yes. Then we get into things like OSHA requirements, like you and your employees should be wearing gloves. You should have safety glasses on. Whatever other things you need, hearing protection if you're using particularly loud machines. All those things are considerations, and I take it very seriously. Whenever somebody comes to my training, they have to wear safety glasses and they have to wear gloves when we're working on a car. And what's cool about this is they can get kind of used to it. Then they go back home. It's like, oh, I got to put my gloves on. So, and I'll be honest, I only in the last maybe 5 years started seriously wearing gloves, and now I feel naked if I don't have them on.
Right. So, I'm the same way. I was a mechanic for years and I never wore gloves. I'd bathe in solvent up to my elbows. I'm sure my arms are going to fall off, but I wear them religiously now. And I think that, you mentioned you or your employees. If you have employees and you don't have personal safety equipment, you are at a huge liability. Yeah. It's going to take one instance and you're done. So safety, that's just part of the legal operation of your business. In any community, you have to look after your employees. You should anyway, but you have to by law. So, you need to look into all of that stuff and make sure you're following the rules for your area. Chemicals are the same way. If you have got chemicals, you have to have the material safety data sheet for every single chemical that you have. If you can't do it, at the very least, you have to have a binder. Laminate it and put it in a binder and have all that with you on your truck, your van. If you have software, you're using software, put it in the software so you can bring it up. But do something so that you are covered legally for those legal requirements when it comes to the chemicals and the things you do.
Yeah, absolutely. And with the employees, with the chemicals especially, as Rennie Doyle says, if it's on you, it's in you. Because our skin is not impervious. So whatever chemicals are on your body, they're getting soaked in and getting stored in your liver over time. So you may think it's just innocuous stuff. I'm using a mild all-purpose cleaner, but you're using it every day and getting it on your skin every day, and that's collecting in your body. I mean, I'm actually 37, but I look like 58 because
That's right.
I think one of the challenges, as especially in the detailing world, a lot of guys just don't know where to go to find out the compliance requirements in their community.
Right.
Like in California, the demand for waterless operations is much higher than here in Idaho. Mm-hmm. So how would you recommend a detailer find out about those types of compliance issues that are both directly and indirectly affecting them?
You mean in general or in their specific communities?
Both.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, instead of spending the evening watching some stupid television shows, take some time to go on like the OSHA website and just start reading through some of there's all that information. There's tons of information out there about what you are and are not supposed to do, and how you're supposed to protect yourself and your employees, and safe working situations and all that, and start diving into that. And then another way you can do it is to look for online seminars on OSHA compliance. I know that the IDA has a catalog of webinars that they've done throughout the years, and I'm sure there's got to be one in there somewhere about these types of related issues to give you more introduction.
Right. And they actually, we aren't talking about that topic tonight, but those watching those webinars gives you CU credits for your IDA certification. If you were not aware of that, go watch a video and you get 1 credit.
Right.
And ignorance of the laws in your state does not mean that you are, the law does not apply to you. No. So if you're washing stuff down the drain and somebody catches you doing that and they come out and you're going to get fined. And if you go, I had no idea, that doesn't make any difference. Yeah. Whether it's hard to find, easier to find, or whatever, you need to understand the laws in your area in order to stay compliant with that. And sometimes, a lot of times I think we're rolling our eyes and we're like, geez, here's another thing I got to do. But like you said, you're going to be much more profitable if you understand the laws. It is also now great for marketing, just to be compliant in the laws. If you come in and say, hey, I have this mat and I collect all the water and I take it with me when I'm done, and I recycle it and I do it in a healthy manner for the environment, that's a marketing thing. I mean, it can help you in your business.
Yeah, it really legitimizes your business and it distinguishes you from other people. So going back real quick, you talked about MSDS sheets. They're actually now just called SDS, Safety Data Sheets. Not a big deal, but and they should be available from every supplier that you get stuff from. So whatever chemicals you have on board, you should be able to go to the manufacturer, to their website. And then sometimes they even have it as a drop down tab, SDS sheets, and you just print them out and, like you said, put them in your binder and have them in there. And technically those have to be available to your employees too. They should be able to pick up a sheet of information about every chemical that you've got on board, because they have a right to know what's in it and what impacts it can have on themselves. So
and your manufacturers have to produce that.
They have.
That is a legal requirement for them to be in business. Is they have to produce that safety data sheet on every chemical that they put out, whether it's inert or not. They have to have
it. So more OSHA stuff. Every bottle that you have has to have a complete label on it with all the information on it. So if you're pouring off into ketchup bottles, dispenser bottles, or into 32 ounce trigger sprayers, and it's just got, spray wax on it, you can't do that with a Sharpie. It's got to have a full label with all the information on it that the original bulk supply had on it. So fortunately, with most of the detail suppliers these days, they have pre-labeled bottles available. Mm-hmm. And, you think, oh, well, that's, I'm going to have to spend $5 a bottle for every bottle I have. Yeah, but it's a one-time expense. I mean, that should last you for years, that pre-labeled bottle. And then what's cool about that is there's no question about what you're picking up. It's right there. And your employees have no question. It's right there on the label. And then if OSHA stops by or whoever stops by from the city or the county and says, hey, let me see your bottles, and they're all labeled and pretty, plus it looks great for your customers,
Right.
A lot of the companies now have wonderful themes in their labeling, and it goes across all their different labels, all their different chemicals. So just looks cool too. And then your customers realize they're looking at your rack of spray bottles, and they realize, well, I can't get that stuff. No, and that's why I'm dealing with a professional. It's going to take me forever to try to figure out what all that stuff is.
Right. And the thing is some of your customers are asking that too. They don't want any harmful chemicals sprayed around any more than you do. So they're asking about that stuff. And I do appreciate very much the way the manufacturers are doing that now, where they're standardizing their labels. They have the information printed right on them. And you can see whether, depending on the brand you use, whether or not, oh, this is inert, or this has got some kind of a eye irritation or whatever it may be. You can look right at it and see what it does.
Well, and it also helps you in your operations, right? Because if you're going to go grab a bottle and they're all white plastic generics with the Sharpies on it, which one do I grab? I got to read it versus let me grab the PNSB maker, right? Quick and easy versus the Clarity.
Right there.
The one that says acid. That's the one for your eyes, right?
Yeah. You go ahead and do that, Rod. Hey, so, another thing about chemicals, too, is diluting them correctly. Follow the label, RTFM. Follow what the label says in your dilution. Always know that the larger number is water. So if it says 4-to-1, it's 4 parts water, 1 part chemical. Okay? So just remember that. And get all your labels, all your bottles labeled. Have your SDS sheets on board, whether it's at your shop or on your mobile rig. So then we get into some of the other regulatory compliance things. We talked about the local business license. Realize that no matter how big or small your company is, you have to comply with all federal, state, and local laws that surround your business. So just because you're a one-man operation doesn't mean you get to do anything you want. These include labor laws as well. If you have one employee, you got to follow all the labor laws, and that's a big deal. And there are places where you can get information about labor, like SCORE. Some of the car wash associations have fantastic labor seminars. It's also good to know a labor law attorney that you can ask simple questions to. And again, all the stuff is available online. You just gotta look up your Department of Labor in your state and start looking through some of that information, educating yourself, okay, on some of the issues that you may not even be aware of with your employees.
Yeah.
One of the scariest phone calls I ever got years ago was an employee that I let go, and he called me up and said, "Well, you remember that knee injury I had a couple of weeks ago? I'm going to go ahead and need some money for that. And then I'm going to go down to the labor board and talk to them about you and your business." And I'm like, well, what's going on? Why are you doing this to me? Now, fortunately, he was just, blowing hot air and trying to scare me because he was pissed off that I let him go. But, I had all that stuff in order. So I really didn't have anything to be afraid of, but it was still a scary call.
Yeah,
and if
one way you can combat that is, and some of this stuff sounds, I don't think it's a lot of people think it's mumbo jumbo, but put together a company handbook. Put together a company handbook, whether you have 1 employee or 100 employees, and line all this stuff up. You can find templates online.
Yes.
You mentioned in our overview podcast, going to a local leads meeting or being involved in your local chamber of commerce. There are unbelievable resources available in your chamber of commerce. I don't care if it's somebody that's owned a flower shop for 15 years. They've done it. They've played the game for 15 years in your community. Simple things like how large a sign can be if you have a fixed location, and can you advertise on the streets, and can you leave a flyer on somebody's window, things like that. You really need to get tied into your community resources to do that. If you want to talk to people that have done it, Prentice is a good resource. Jody and I, Oscar Hernandez in California is another one. He's really tied into the Chamber of Commerce there. But get involved in your community, and you will learn these laws. You don't just need to spend countless hours not knowing, oh no, I don't know this. Just go talk to somebody that's already done it.
Yeah, I'll tell you that I've belonged to my late tip chapter for 20 years, and it represents as much as 25% of my operational income every year. So not only that, but I've got access to 70 professionals, each with their own expertise, to call at a moment's notice and say, in fact, that was one of my phone calls when that guy called me and said, I'm going to do this and do that. I called somebody that had a painting business with a number of employees for several years, and I said, Fred, I'm scared to death. What do I do? And he says, you know what? I wouldn't do anything. He's just blowing smoke. I've heard this conversation so many times, and he was right. Nothing ever happened. But it's nice to have somebody to call with silly, stupid questions and sometimes real serious questions. So
yeah, and you need to know those things. You call your local labor board prior to even getting an employee. They have tons of resources. You have to register those employees with your state when you hire one. You have to fill out forms. You have to turn in all this other paperwork. It's worth it to get that employee. But you need to understand what the laws and the rules and the regulations are around that. Can you have that employee work hourly? Do they need to be salaried? What are the, for pay, for benefits, all that kind of stuff?
Subcontracting, is it a subcontractor relationship or is it an employee relationship? Right. And let's just dial into that for a second. The IRS has gotten pretty firm on contractors versus subcontractors versus employees. Now, subcontractors, it's going to be like this. It's pretty simple for us in the detailing industry. That's going to be a detailer that has his own business, has his own equipment, and is going to call my customer to schedule the appointment. That's a subcontractor. But if I say, hey, I need you to show up with me at this location and help me detail this car on Saturday, and I have all the equipment, that's not a subcontractor. Okay, nope. So just get that one. It's pretty easy. Yeah. They have their own business. They do that business most of the time, and they have their own equipment, and you give them the customer information, and they make all the scheduling stuff. So then that's a true subcontractor. Yeah.
I think the easy way to remember that is that if it's business to business, it's easy to define. But if you're going business to person, then it can be a challenge.
Yeah, right. True. Right. That was the big one that our attorney told us is they have to have a business name. If you're doing the 1099 thing, you're gonna be in trouble potentially. So it's better to go business to business. Right. They have a business name. They're sending you an invoice basically, and then it's easier on the expenses and everything. And otherwise, don't try to get fancy. If you need to hire somebody, hire them. You're not saving that much money. And if it's going to be a repetitive thing, you're going to do it all the time. Work out a business agreement with that person if they have another business, or if not, just hire them.
Yeah, exactly. So speaking of hiring, speaking of employees, workers' compensation insurance cover is critical, absolutely critical. It doesn't have to be that much. I think my policy is about $1,300 a year. You can get that paid in installments if that makes it easier on you. But I'll tell you what, if you have an employee that gets hurt and you don't have workers' comp insurance, you are going to be in a world of hurt. I mean, they're going to come after you for fines and all kinds of stuff above and beyond taking care of the employee. So it's not worth not having it. As a matter of fact, in the last couple of years, I had a good solid employee for 5 years, and he went on to sound school. It's kind of cool. So he's moved on with his career. But then I had this gap, and I really didn't want to just find anybody to fill it. So I didn't have somebody for several months. And I asked my insurance agent, said, should I just cancel my workers' comp? And he said, no, keep it, because you've got a good rate. And then when you do get an employee again, it'll already be in place. So sometimes I'm even paying it when I don't have an employee on board right now. It's that important, so that anytime that if somebody drops through that funnel and is a perfect person to work in my business, it's already there. I don't even have to think about it. So we talked about chemical management. I would recommend with chemical management, make sure that there's one person in charge of it, It should be you if you're the business owner. If you've got an extra large operation, maybe your lead manager. You shouldn't have every technician have access to diluting chemicals because they're going to make mistakes. They're going to do it wrong. And you should have your stuff pre-diluted, so all they do is take their bottle over and fill it up from a pre-diluted source, like a 5-gallon carboy with a spigot, as simple as that. It could be a chemical dispensing system available from many of the chemical manufacturers now. They're really cool. In fact, I'm thinking about just getting one at my house because it's so easy to use. So correct management of chemicals, Clean Water Act. Let's talk about that for a moment.
Yep.
So the Clean Water Act came about in the early 70s. It's one of the great things that Nixon did. I know there's a lot of poo-pooing of Nixon, but he did actually do some pretty cool stuff, and that was one of them. And it essentially says that you are not allowed to dump anything that's into the water system that might get into a river, stream, ocean, or lake. Okay, so that includes going into your storm drain, especially if the storm drain is not processed. In most cities, the storm drains just go right into some river or aquifer or something like that. So if you're washing a car and your suds and your chemicals are going down the storm drain, that is illegal. And that can result in California, I believe it's a $10,000 fine plus $1,000 per gallon of stuff that you dispensed. Okay. The issue with the Clean Water Act, as far as enforcement is concerned, is the enforcement was left up to local municipalities. So this is where it gets confusing. So I've been in San Diego for 32 years. There have been times when they had little white trucks running around looking for people washing cars in the street. And there were times when you could do anything you want. And nobody really cared. I've been to states where they had a car wash with really nasty chemicals. Stuff's just going right out in the stream because nobody's looking. Okay. But technically all of that is illegal. You're not supposed to be doing it. So let's do it the right way. Number one, if you're mobile, you got to make sure that your water, your wastewater, and even rinse water is not allowed. Technically, it's illegal to stand with a hose out in the middle of the street and spray the hose, because that's eventually going to go into the storm drain, and it wasn't supposed to be there anyway. I know it's crazy. So make sure that your water's not going into the street. If you're in a situation like a public parking lot or an office building parking lot, and you're doing a lot of that kind of work, then you probably need to get a wash mat, collect your water, and figure out a way to dispense of that recovered water. Find a local car wash owner who will let you pay to put it into his system, or something like that. Or go waterless, or no rinse. All those different options that we have now to wash a car, to clean a car.
There's a local detailer here that actually tells she will not do a completely filthy car. She requires that they take it down and spray it off. Don't use the brush, but spray it off and get all the big chunks and dirt and dust and all that stuff off of it before she washes it, because she doesn't have a recovery system, and she's like, I'm not going to deal with it. So you get that taken care of, and her customers do it.
That's brilliant. That's kind of the way I've always handled it too. Most customers, if you tell them, hey, could you get your car washed at the car wash the night before, the morning of, so that I don't have to worry about all that, and I'll give you $15-20 off or whatever, and then I don't have to spend an hour washing the car. I just got to clay it and move on. So that's definitely an option. There have been situations where I've taken a really bad vehicle down to the local self-service car wash and get it rinsed off and scrubbed off there first, then bring it back to wherever I am and finish the detail. So it doesn't have to be this big complicated things. In my early mobile days, I realized I have to adapt to every situation. You're always adapting, okay? And you've got to keep that in your mind. We're going to get this job done, even if it means doing things a little bit unconventionally, okay? So Clean Water Act's a huge one. I think that's all I had on compliance, really.
Yep.
No, that's good.
And that's great. It's this is a good break for people. I mean, this is, I think, here's your homework, people. In 101, go do some homework. Find out if you're compliant in all the laws and regulations in your local area. I would almost venture to say that you're going to find something that you're like, oh, I didn't even know that was a thing. Again, local municipalities put it somewhere. They may not have it in the best place. You may not be able to find it easily, but again, it's your job to find out how to be compliant in your area.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, Rod, if you just start poking around the internet on your city website or your state website,
Yep.
they generally are pretty good with information about this stuff because they want people to be compliant. They want to help them out.
Yeah.
Yes,
And
they are.
here's one last little note on that too. If somebody ever, and if an official ever stops into your shop, or as you're working out on a mobile basis, and I'm so and so from the EPA or OSHA or the fire marshal or whoever, first thing you want to do is say, "Hey, how are you? It's good to meet you. Here's my business card, and how can I help you today?"
Yep.
Okay. If you start out with, "Yeah, what the hell do you want? I'm trying to work here, man. I'm trying to make a living for my babies." Guess
That's
what?
right.
Price just went up, man.
Oh yeah, we got audited. One of the best stories I've ever got is the word audit makes you just pucker. I got audited, and we have a conference room. When they showed up in the morning, I had donuts, I had coffee, I had orange juice. Please come in, have a seat. How can I help you out? And it went from we are the IRS
Right.
to wow, this is great. Nobody ever gives
Yeah.
us donuts, and it was a very pleasant experience.
Right. So that individual, the thing, and if they say, you're doing this wrong, you're doing that wrong, you just say, "Hey, look, I want to be in compliance. Please tell me what I need to do. I'm
Exactly.
happy to do it."
Exactly.
And most individuals, you get the power hungry guy, but most individuals, like you said, they're going to soften right up if you're friendly and nice, and they're going to soften right up, and they might even say, "Look, here's what I want to see from you. I'm going to come back in a week. Here's the things I want to see from you," and then you get it taken care of.
Yeah,
So-
exactly.
Right.
And that's what it's about, right? I mean, it's not about evading the compliance. It's about being professional, owning your business, owning what you need to do for your community, for your environment, for your state and local communities. And it's really not that hard if you put a little effort. And there's so many resources that are willing to help you, like us.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Right,
that's
which
the
is a
whole
great
purpose.
segue. If you have questions about that and you don't know how to do it or you can't find something, email us, one of us, Prentice, Rod, Jody, Detail in Progress, RoadFS. You can't
Put
find us,
some
you're not
comments
looking.
in the
Put a
episode.
comment in this.
Yeah.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel and you'll find out tons of information. And if you can't find it, we will help you find it.
That's right.
Absolutely. Yep, for sure. I'm happy to take questions and help people as much as I can, for sure. Yep.
Well, thank you so much, man. We appreciate you taking the time to share your wealth of knowledge. We were definitely not overwhelmed, but whelmed with some awesome tidbits. And we will check you guys
The next part of this series.
right there. See ya.